there is this weird ability that you develop over time when going to the gym often, and it's basically you being able to tell when somebody is on steroids or not. And at the beginning, my understanding of this was much different than it is now. And as soon as I would see somebody that is bigger than me, obviously he's on steroids, because like if he's bigger than me, obviously he should be abusing something. But well, as time went by, my understanding of this became a little bit more realistic. And there are a few very obvious signs that somebody is abusing steroids. And one of the least obvious ones, but for me it over time became quite obvious, is when somebody's very bloated and when somebody is holding a lot of water, but they also have veins popping out of everywhere. That is a fairly clear indicator that most probably they are using something, because those things normally don't really go together. And if you're very big and holding a lot of water and you have this moon face and you just basically look like a balloon, but also you have a lot of veins coming out of everywhere, normally it doesn't really happen that way. So if there is somebody that looks in that sort of a way, most probably they are abusing testosterone or something like that. Then another fairly obvious one would be the condition in which the person's skin is in. So if you see a lot of acne, if you see this almost kind of like a rugged homeless person type tan thing going on, that is also going to be mostly an indication that something is going on. And the clearest signs would be basically acne. So like if you see weird kind of like dark spot type of an acne thing going on his hands, or if you see like a lot of intense acne on the back, those would be kind of mostly indicators that a person is using something. Then also it can be acne on like the chest, which is going to be less visible, but the most kind of frequent ones and the most visible ones are mostly going to be acne on their hands or on their back. And you also have to be able to differentiate, because normal acne doesn't really look like the acne you get when you're on steroids. So normal acne is a little bit lighter and a little bit less intense and a little bit less strong, I would even say. And that sort of acne anyone could have, as long as you go to the gym often, as long as you sweat, you are going to most probably develop a level of acne. And also maybe just the guy is a teenager, or like he's just younger and he's still kind of struggling with his skin. So that could also be the case. So it's not always necessarily going to be the fact that he's using something. Sometimes it could just be like a condition of his skin basically. But a thing that normally is going to give it away is when it starts getting dark, and when it starts getting a little bit more intense than normally, that will be a sign that something is going on as well. Then another very clear indicator is just like a person's general performance, because there is going to be a difference between you going hard and you going like really fucking hard and you going really fucking often and you basically being at the gym every single day. And this one is a little bit more tricky, because I don't really want to sound like an asshole and just kind of like put down anyone that is training a lot. But the fact is, when you are using something, you are going to be able to recover better and you are going to be able to go harder. So when you see somebody that is relatively jacked, not super big, but kind of jacked, but then he's like moving a lot of weight and he's going very hard, and then the next day, once again, he's at the gym going very hard and moving a lot of weight, that is also going to be a sign that there is a possibility that something more is going on and that he might be using something. That is also going to be a part of it. And then also, like, if you communicate with a person that you suspect might be using something, you're also going to be able to see signs when it comes to like communication. Because people that use stuff tend to be a little bit more trigger happy when it comes to like snapping, and their fuse is a little bit shorter than normally, and they would just generally be a little bit more aggressive. So that is also something that you can kind of mostly identify that a person is, well, either mentally not doing all that well, which is also fairly common scenario nowadays with guys. Like a lot of guys are just weird in general, but also it might be the fact that he's just using something, and he's just like using something that like is messing with his mood a little bit more and is like causing mood swings and shit like that. So that would also be an indicator. And well, the last one, the least obvious one, which is something that you're mostly not going to see, but like if it's really bad, you can see it if you're actually looking at a person, is gyno. And sometimes you can see it through a person's clothing, and you see like a super big guy that's like very jacked, and then he also has this homeless tan going on, and then if you look at him like moving something, and like if you look at him bench pressing and you see like fucking tits, coming out of his like basically like tank top or whatever the fuck is it that he's wearing, and like you can just kind of see that shit pushing out and it's like puffy, that is also going to be a fairly good indication that he's using something, and that is actually going to be one of the more trustworthy indications, because if a person has like significantly more puffy nipples than like normally you would see, or if he has like significantly more breast tissue and it looks like he has like man tits, but while he's also very lean and while he's also very jacked, that is going to be a pretty good indication that he is most probably on something, because first of all, you don't really normally develop man tits while being shredded and being very fit. And if you do, that's also not always going to be the case. Like actually, like man tits are not something that guys get that often if they're not using anything. But yeah, like it's even more suspicious if you see somebody who's like exceptionally lean and exceptionally fit, and it's obvious that he's in shape, but then also he has like fucking tits. That is pretty much going to give it away, and it's going to be somewhat clear that he is most probably abusing something. And yeah, basically those are kind of like the indications that I normally look at, and like the indicators that I normally look at when it comes to identifying if somebody is on something. At the end of the day, I feel like it's also somewhat of a weird thing to like overanalyze these kind of things and like really focus on what is it that somebody else is doing. I feel like you should be mostly focused on yourself, and you should mostly look at yourself rather than trying to understand if somebody is abusing something or not. But these indicators might come in handy when somebody is just like openly lying to you. So for an example, there's like a trainer or a guy that's trying to sell you something, or trying to like get you to go with him and to train with him, and basically trying to get you to pay him for him to train you, and then he's saying that he's not using anything and he's suspiciously jacked, then these will be the indications that you could try to look at, the indicators that you could try to look at to determine if he's lying to you or not. Because if a person is trying to sell you something and he's also lying about how is it that he got the results that he has, well, that is a bad person. That is a fucking degenerate piece of shit, and you should avoid these kind of people, because he's ultimately just scamming you. He's trying to sell you this vision of how is it that he looks, and he's trying to sell you this idea of you achieving this level of fitness that he has achieved, but then he's lying about how is it that he achieved it. So for me, that's kind of like the biggest kind of like reason why I would look at these kind of things, and that's kind of like the utility for me when it comes to trying to identify if somebody's using something. Because if somebody's trying to like sell you something, and if somebody's like trying to tell you that he's very good at something, but then he's not being all that forthcoming when it comes to like revealing how is it that he actually achieved this, and he's giving you some kind of like a bullshit story about how him taking creatine, sleeping well, and eating chicken breast, well, those kind of people can go and fuck themselves. And I feel like that is when you actually should pay attention to these kind of things to try to understand if he's lying to you or not. So yeah, that is kind of like my opinion when it comes to these kind of things. Don't be creepy. Don't start like fucking staring at dude's tits and trying to understand if he's on steroids or not. That's just like a weird thing to do, and it's completely unnecessary. But if there is a person that is trying to bullshit you, then these might be the things that you might want to look at, and these might be the indicators that you might want to look at if somebody is lying to you or not. So yeah, that is the video for today. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys in the next one.